the day, and time will wither the strongest tree, but nothing will change you and me. For true love goes on and on, our love will be ever new. True love goes on and on, my darling, I'll always love you. The mightiest mountain may tumble down, the world may even stop spinning round, a star may fall to the deep blue sea, but nothing will change you and me. For true love goes on and on, our love will be ever new. True love goes on and on, my darling, I'll always love you.
Some days the sun will forget to shine.
In autumn the leaves will desert the vine.
An ocean may someday a desert be, but nothing will change you and me.
For true love goes on and on, our love will be ever new. True love goes on and on, my darling, I'll always love you.
Well, I've walked a mile or two in my lifetime, and I've traveled down some muddy tracks and dry. 'Cause if I wanted to get where I was going, I knew I'd just have to walk that country mile. Now a country mile would be the longest distance a man could ever travel when he's down. And you curse the never-ending road before you when you think you'll never make it into town. But you meet a friend or two along the highway, and you learn a lot you never knew before. And if the journey takes a lifetime when you thought a year or two, well, you just don't give up easy anymore. And I've walked a mile or two in my lifetime, and I've traveled down some muddy tracks and dry. 'Cause if I wanted to get where I was going, I knew I'd just have to walk that country mile. Mile has shown me changes in the people and the land. But I'll bet the road to Marble Bar's no better than when I drove with trucks and caravans. And the country bloke is still the same old battler, no matter what the place he's working in. And although I've covered many miles, I still can't wait to see what the next long country mile will bring. Well, I've walked a mile or two in my lifetime, and I've traveled down some muddy tracks and dry. 'Cause if I wanted to get where I was going, I knew I'd just have to walk that country mile. Yes, I knew I'd have to walk that country mile.
Beyond the sunset, oh blissful morning, when with our Savior heaven is begun, earth's toiling ended, oh glorious dawning, beyond the sunset, when day is done. Beyond the sunset, no clouds will gather, no storms will threaten, no fears annoy. O day of gladness, O day unending, beyond the sunset, eternal joy. Beyond the sunset, oh glad reunion with our dear loved ones who've gone before in that fair.
Still on the roses.
On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross, where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown.
After all the adventures of life, of the heights, the ambitions, the striving to achieve, the pains, the joys of life, we come to the stile. We pause and rest and contemplate the way ahead. No more toiling, just a slow, easy descent to the valley. The walk and life come to an end. Ladies and gentlemen, on Wednesday the 19th of March 2025, Keith Hutton began a slow, easy descent to the valley. His walk and his life come to an end. Today we meet as a group of people whose lives have been touched by the life and the death of Keith Hutton.
Today, Rennie and I will be jointly leading this service. For me, Keith was a precious and much-loved uncle, a brother to my dad, and Rennie has known Pam and had the privilege of assisting Keith when it was time for him to plan this service.
A funeral takes a team of people who work together in creating a ceremony. And with me today are Peter and Lucas, along with our catering staff, Mandy and Fairley and Kathy. And as the staff of Parkside, we are privileged to have been entrusted with the care of Keith after his death, to care for his family now, and of conducting his service here at Parkside. And at the conclusion, the family warmly invite you to stay here at Parkside for a cuppa and a chat as we continue in remembering Keith's life. As we begin this service, can I ask you to turn your mobile phones off or onto silent as your mark of respect for Keith? For those of you joining us via live stream, we're glad you're able to set aside this time, and we thank you for honouring Keith in this way.
Keith was a man who loved the land. He lived his life in its rhythm. I have worked and farmed the fertile earth, so I know what faith is. I have listened to the birds carolling in the early morning and at dusk, so I know what the music of nature is. I have seen the morning with clouds after showers, so I know what beauty is. I have spent time in the company of little children and experienced their laughter, so I know what peace is. I have dwelt in the valley of remembrance and on the hills of home, so I know what love is. I have seen the miracle of spring, the fruition of summer, the beauty of autumn, followed by the repose of winter, so I know what life is. It is a beautiful thing when a family speaks at a funeral to put words around the love that they feel for someone who has died. The memories and stories are so incredibly important. I know we have all been recalling the stories of Uncle Keith over the last few days. We certainly have as a family. So now it's time for Debbie, Stephen, Vicky and Kathy to share some of those memories they will carry forever in their hearts. Do you want to come forward?
Before we start the eulogy, I would first like to thank Dad's niece Sally and the Parkside staff for conducting this service. We would also like to thank the palliative care team from the Burnie Cancer Centre and the community nurses that cared so well for Dad. Lawrence Keith Hutton was born to Hazel Alexander and Eliza Elizabeth Hutton on the 30th of September 1937. He grew up on the family farm at Calder, helping out whenever and wherever he was needed. Keith, as he was known, is the youngest of 8 children. Kevin, at 14 months old when Keith was born, had difficulty saying Lawrence, however could say Keith, so Keith stuck. Keith attended the University of Calder, as he called it, a small school only a short 2-mile walk each morning and afternoon. An intelligent man, although reading and writing were not his strong points. He was well acquainted with the cane and he struggled through school until finishing in Year 6 at about 15 years of age. A bit of a larrikin in a good way, always good fun, like when he used to put Lorraine down the rabbit holes, hopefully pulling her out with a rabbit in hand. Keith was often called Ned, as he was game as Ned Kelly. He had an old motorbike which he fixed with wire to hold it together. A bit of a daredevil, by all accounts. Nothing seemed to scare him. He was often into mischief, but rarely into trouble. He did once get a speeding ticket. After the cop wrote out the ticket, Keith proceeded to ask him, "What's black and white with a cherry on top and 2 nuts inside?" Thankfully, this did not result in a second ticket being written out. Other nicknames were Boots or Troubles. He often told me Troubles was his middle name. By the time Keith finished school, his mother Eliza had developed Parkinson's and needed help with daily tasks. He was excused from doing national service to look after his ailing mother, which was a constant source of ribbing from his brothers, or something like that, as Kevin puts it. Keith gained employment driving trucks at AT Gray General Carriers. Superphosphate from the Wharf or Hobart and lime from Railton were 2 of his main hauls. He attended the local dances at the Morley Hall. There he set eyes on the most beautiful girl around and pursued her constantly, eventually winning a date. He was so excited to take her to the drive-in that he drove in, parked, turned the car off, put the speaker in the window and wrapped his arm around his girl, proud as punch. There was a tap, tap on the window and a voice saying, "Hey mate, can you turn your headlights off?" On 30th of June 1962, Keith and Pam were married at the Uniting Church in Wynyard. In 1963, Debbie was born, starting the family. Pam and Keith moved on several occasions in the early years living at Morlea, Doctors Rocks, where Stephen joined the family, Calder, Road and Millabina, where I joined the family, until finally purchasing their own property in Laponia in January 1967. Kathy rounded out the family, arriving in 1970, although a few years later, when it was school holidays, Keith gained another son and we gained another brother, Ricky. The property at Laponia was a dairy farm, with Pam doing most of the milking, while Keith worked on the farm clearing and creating paddocks, planting crops for the cattle, and also working at various places driving trucks to keep ahead of the debts. Mum could never watch Dad when he was clearing the hills around the property. He would take the tractor places where no one else would, but he always came home in one piece. Growing up, Dad was often telling us kids to put shoes on and to be thankful we had shoes to wear. He mostly went barefoot as a child, with shoes being so expensive and having to be specially made as he had wider feet than normal. Dad was big on teaching us kids to be independent, to be able to look after ourselves, as we never knew what our circumstances would be. Hard work never hurt anyone, so us girls had to help with the hay carting, feeding the cows and other farm tasks, including nailing the roof down on the barn. And the boy needed to know how to cook and feed and sew a button on his shirt. It was never too early to learn. The first time I drove a tractor, I was about 6 years old, sitting on Dad's knee. I was zigzagging all over the place. Later, I remember visiting Bill Bugg's place up the road. When we left, he handed me the keys to Deb's Morris Minor and said, "You drive home." I was only 14. When Debbie went to drive it later that day, it was out of oil, so of course I got the blame. Dad loved tinkering with engines and farm machinery, especially around hay time. He used to talk to whatever pieces of equipment he was working on. As the words got louder and quicker, an errant tool would fly off down the driveway or into the blackberries. I would often quietly pick up the tools from the driveway and put back into the toolbox, or give them to him, before returning to the safety of the carport. The ones in the blackberries could well still be there. Not sure where the rest of the family was. When Dad's temper flared during hay season, there was only one man in the neighbourhood that was able to calm him down, saving several balers or rakes from being attacked by the sledgehammer. All others, like us kids, would make us scarce until the air cleared a bit. Thank you, John Fowler, for your sanity and calmness. It was very much appreciated by both Mum and Dad. When one of us girls would ask, "What's your problem, Dad?" he would usually answer, "I've got daughters." Stephen might be a chip off the old block, as when we ask him what his problem is, he would say, "I have sisters."
For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Stephen, my father's favourite son. Dad and me had lots of good times together. When I was a little kid, I would go with him as much as I could. There's not much of Tassie we didn't see through the windscreen of a truck. When I was quite young, Dad taught me to drive the tractor, a car, motorbike, truck, use a chainsaw, welder, and how to shoe a horse. He also taught me a foreign language. French, I think it was, but not the same French they taught me at school. Dad was quite a sociable person and welcomed newcomers to the area, and soon got to know the new neighbours. On one occasion, he was talking to a new neighbour, and the fellow asked him, "What's your dog's name?" When Dad told him, he looked a bit bamboozled and said, "That's none of the names you called him in the paddock the other day, shifting the cattle." Dad left us with a lot of good memories, and I'll miss him heaps.
Dad and Mum were so well respected in the community that when our family lost everything in a house fire, we were inundated by support from the community to help us get back on our feet. Dad bought a truck of his own, an old Bedford truck, to be able to cart his own cattle, farm implements, and possibly the horses he'd started to purchase for us kids. There were many trips to Pony Club, gymkhanas and shows. After driving us all there, he would cook the hamburgers on the portable gas barbecue for our family. After a few years of this, he bought Mum a little Mitsubishi Canter and got her to get her licence so she could drive us around instead.
Dad loved us all equally, whether it was his eldest Debdole, his number one son, his little girl Vic, or me, his baby. Each of us knew we were loved and cherished. There were no favourites. One of the many things Dad taught me was to drive the tractor and the truck, mostly around in circles in the paddock picking up hay. And then there was the task of shoeing the horses, because the ponies were too far for him to bend down to. And he also taught me the same French as Stephen, and I think I speak at most Hutton French of all of us. There are two moments that stand out in my mind when I think of Dad's love, his humour and his wisdom. I remember when Mum went away to South Australia and Dad had to take me to the Wynyard Show. That year, around 4 a.m, Dad woke me up and said, "It's raining. You better get your horses, put them in the shed and get ready for the show." As any good daughter would, I got up, started to dress, ready to head out, but then I asked him, "Are you going to milk the cows?" His reply was, "I've already milked them." Another moment that I'll remember forever is when I lost one of my horses after a show in the spring. I was sitting in the kitchen steps of the ranch, crying, heartbroken over the loss, when Dad appeared. He comforted me and then shared some wisdom that has stayed with me since. He said, "You know, love, if you have livestock, you have dead stock." And as simple as those words were, they have helped me through many moments in life. It's a reminder that in life we also have death.
After many years of driving trucks for other companies, Dad decided to start carting cattle and other farm items as a general carrier, using the truck he already had from carting the horses round. The truck was blazoned with the name L.K. Hutton, Laponia. Now, most people knew him as Keith. They would ask, what does the L stand for? And he would reply with a big grin, "Lovable." I know for a fact at least one person has him saved in their phone as Lovable Keith. Keith and his truck would be regular fixtures at Smithton, Qoiba and Cooey sale yards, as well as clearing sales all over the northwest coast, carting cattle and farm implements faithfully back and forth. He would also cart show cattle from shows all the way from Stanley over to Devonport. No job was too small for his friends in the community, where he was always the good bloke or Lovable Keith. Ever aware of the importance of community, Dad was a member of the Morlea Volunteer Fire Brigade for many years and was awarded the National Service Medal for his efforts in March 1995. When the Volunteer Brigade started a junior section, Dad encouraged Stephen and myself to be members. Kathy has also followed in his footsteps as a long-term member of the Castra Volunteer Fire Brigade. Once Mel, Michael and Amy were born, Keith became Pop. Pop loved having his grandkids visit, taking them for many trips in the truck, having them help feed out the cows, move the electric fences and hay baling carting in their regular school holiday visits. He never seemed bothered when the young grandkids were worried that the driverless tractor was going to end up in the river as it rolled along in low gear while they were all pulling the hay off the back. He also loved playfully teasing his grandkids by threatening to use a cattle protter on them. But of course he never did. In later years, the great-grandchildren came along. Pop loved the ball games with them in the backyard at Caitlin's Drive, trips to the park and climbing the Stanley Nut. He was also known as Pop to many more young kids than his blood relatives, a testament to his loving nature, kind soul and appreciation of the importance of community. He loved visiting and socialising with anyone and everyone. After retiring away from the farm and carting cattle to live in Wynyard Town, he swapped his carting people around to medical appointments or other appointments. He was always happy to lend a helping hand. He was also a regular fixture in the Wynyard Christmas Parade or in the gopher race at the Wynyard Tulip Festival, almost always crossing the line last, but always with the biggest grin.
Now it's my turn, but being the oldest, I needed some aids. Well, Dad, time has come. 87 years of ups, downs, roundabouts. What a ride. Through my eyes, you are one amazing human being. You found your soulmate, formed an unbreakable team. That team created and raised a family, making each one of us independent, but forever bound by your morals, ethics, and high standards of respect and compassion for each other and all of those around us. We all have treasured memories that will stay in our hearts forever, that will belong to us only. Mine will be the many times you picked me up when I was down after a breakup with a boyfriend or some other earth-shattering life experience, no matter what time of the day or night. But most of all, it will be the exploring that we did across this vast country, from east to west and top to bottom. We drove for miles, yakking, looking about, having a ball, getting into a little mischief here and there and in and out of some laughable scrapes. But most of all, we had fun. These will forever be my fondest memories when I had you all to myself. My world will not be the same without you in it. You are an amazing man that I'm extremely privileged to call my daddy. And in the words of Johnny Cash, the family circle will not be broken. We will be together again, up yonder in a little while. Love you, Deb doll.
Thank you, Debbie, Stephen, Vicky and Kathy. What beautiful words to honour your dad. An important part of funerals today is the visual storytelling. Photos are a powerful and important way of reviving those memories, for memories have a way of receding into the background. So let's take a stroll down memory lane as we listen to some classic Slim Dusty.
Looking forward, looking back, I've come a long way down the track, got a long way left to go, making songs from what I know, making sense of what I've seen, all the love we've had between you and I along the track, looking forward, looking back. There are strange days full of change on the way, but we'll be fine, unlike some. I'll be leaning forward to see what's coming, looking forward, looking back. I've come a long way down the track, got a long way left to go, making songs from what I know. If I'm alone at night, I can see through all triviality of the day, and I'm okay. I just think of those who are dear to me, looking forward, looking back. I've come a long way down the track, got a long way left to go, making songs from what I know, making songs from what I know, looking forward, looking back.
Didn't fly through the air. He's no superhero, he's sure no millionaire. He didn't walk on the moon, he didn't save the world today, but he's my hero anyway. We all need a hero, someone to follow, someone to look up to, a good role model. Well, I'm sitting here looking at an old photograph upon my wall. The man in the picture had it all. Yeah, the man in the picture didn't fly through the air. He's no superhero, he's sure no millionaire. He didn't walk on the moon, he didn't save the world today, but he's my hero anyway. Walking through the back blocks, kids on the street, I wonder why they're angry all the time. Well, they're all out searching for something that they just don't find. I guess they need a hero like mine. Like the man in the picture, he didn't fly through the air. He's no superhero, he's sure no millionaire. He didn't walk on the moon, he didn't save the world today, but he's my hero anyway. If I had a wish today, I wouldn't wish for riches, I wouldn't wish for flashy cars or fancy britches. I'd wish that someday my son would take my picture and say, that man in the picture didn't fly through the air. He's no superhero, he's sure no millionaire. He didn't walk on the moon, he didn't save the world today, but he's my hero anyway. A kind and gentle man, the best friend I ever had. He's my hero, he's my dad. He's my hero, he's my dad. He's my hero, he's my dad. He's my hero, he's my dad.
Some great memories there. Keith was incredibly proud of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, who were such an important part of his and Pam's life. For the legacy that he leaves this world through his family is huge. Amelia, you may know her as Amy, is going to share her memories of a much-loved and respected grandfather on behalf of the grand and great-grandchildren.
Pop was a man of quiet strength and simple dignity. He was, I think, the kindest person I've ever known. He didn't ask much of the world, but he gave so much to the people around him through love, encouragement, and just showing up every day in his steady, reliable way. I don't have one big standout memory of Pop, because the truth is he wasn't the kind of man who needed big moments to be memorable. When I think of Pop, what stands out most is the quiet, quirky, and deeply warm ways that he showed love. I remember getting him a pair of train track braces from one of my trips. He absolutely loved them and wore them the rest of his life. There was a pair of odd socks from Ireland that he adored. He didn't wear them, he hung them on the wall. He even babysat my toy moose for a while when I was off traveling. That was Pop. Simple, kind, quietly full of character, never making a fuss, but always showing he cared. Michael also remembers two special moments that showed how much Pop embraced those around him. When Michael gave Pop a tour of an Airbus A380, the really big aircraft, Pop took hours to look in every nook and cranny, completely captivated by the aircraft that his grandson gets to work on every day. And after Michael organised a special Antarctic flyover trip for Pop, Deb, and Tony, Pop talked about it for years. He would share that story with anyone who would listen, full of pride and joy. That's how we will remember him, a quiet dignity that grounded our family in ways we may never fully appreciate. He was humble, hardworking, and content with what he had, but he always wanted more for others. The day I last saw him, he gave me a hug and he said, "Go back to America and have fun." That's the kind of love he gave, quiet, gentle, but deeply supportive. So with that, I leave us with a short tribute paraphrased from David Harkins. We can shed tears that he is gone, or we can smile because we knew him. We can feel lost in the space he's left behind, or we can continue to live as he wished we would. Goodbye, Pop, and thank you for everything.
Keith was not a man who was found in church every Sunday. But he was a man whose life displayed Christian values of hard work, courage, integrity, kindness, generosity, respect for others. Over and over again, the stories I heard about Keith confirmed this. He'd give you the shirt off his back if you thought you needed it more than he did. And if he found $20 on the footpath, he'd look for the person that had lost it. Our world was a better place with Keith Hutton in it, and we are the poorer for his leaving. A poem the family chose is called Close the Gate. For this one farmer, the worries are over. Lie down and rest your head. Your time has been and struggles enough. Put the tractor in the shed. You raised a fine family, worked the land well, and always followed your heart. The sun is setting, the cattle are all bedded, and here now is the end of your day. Your labour is done. Your home now is heaven. No more must you wait. Your legacy lives on, your love of the land, and we will close the gate. Keith and Pam shared a love story that lasted some 63 plus years. More than a husband, he was a soulmate of Pam. It was an enduring love, one that always put Pam first. She was his first thought and his last. When he was contemplating the leaving of this life, it was Pam he was worried about. He knew that he had prepared his children, Debbie, Stephen, Vicky and Kathy, to be amazing human beings and to find their own way in the world. And he knew that Tony, Carolyn, Stuart and Ray would support them and help them to keep going. Keith's warm and generous heart saw him offer that love and support as a special dad to Ricky and Hazel. He was an admired and loved grandfather of Melissa, Michael and Janine and Amelia. Someone once said that simple moments with your grandchildren often become the most priceless memories. And as they brought children of their own into the world, he became a proud and loving great-grandfather of Leroy, Silas, Zayden and Bronte. Tell the story of him to these young people as they grow, allowing his memory and his legacy to live on.
Keith is survived by his brother, our dad Kevin, and his wife Carmel. He was a dearly loved uncle of all of us, all the cousins included, and their families. We all carry such wonderful memories of him. For those of us who have a flower, now is the time to bring it forward and place it as an act of loving remembrance of Keith.
They say I'm getting older and my hair is turning grey. They say I should be slowing down and give it all away. Living like a gypsy doesn't bother me at all, and I'd sooner be a has-been than a never was at all. Now I could have been a shearer, and I could have been a vet. Could have been a lot of things, but this much you can bet. A man can sit there hanging like a picture on the wall, but I'd sooner be a has-been than I never was at all.
As we reach this point in our ceremony, we are conscious of what lies before us. We sense that which is timeless and reassuring. We know deep inside the sure cycles of nature that all living things must one day die. And there is an unmistakable rightness to what we do now, no matter how much our hearts ache at the death of Uncle Keith. What we do know at this moment is that the life of this man who we have loved lives on in us in a multitude of ways. We feel the pain and grief of his parting. If there are tears, we let them flow, speaking of our love. We also let our hearts sing as we remember Keith's warmth, his love for us, his strong spirit and his humour. Uncle Keith, we commit your body to be taken from this place and cremated, eventually returning earth to earth, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust. It is our deepest wish that you rest in peace. Thank you for all that you have brought into our lives. We will always love you. We mentioned at the beginning of this service that there are a number of people who play a part in carrying out a funeral service. And today are grateful to those entrusted with the honour of carrying Keith's coffin: Stephen, Ricky, Michael, Stuart, Tony and Ray. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our service has come to an end. As our funeral staff come forward and we prepare to leave this place, would you please stand?